Hello? Hey, are we back? Am I live? Hello? Yeah, it did crash, but it's back now. Not sure exactly what happened there, but I think my internet shit itself for a second or something. Oh, that was annoying. Everyone can hear me and stuff, though. Are we back? Are we back? Hello? Okay. Yeah, might. If, sometimes refreshing the browser and stuff fixes it, but let me do that. Just have Helldivers. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, back to the stream. Let's see. It was a 500-mile journey and, surprisingly, quite uneventful. People who are rather more than 6 feet tall and nearly as broad across the shoulders often have uneventful journeys. People jump out at them from behind rocks and then say things like, "Oh, sorry, thought you were someone else." He'd spent most of the journey reading, and now Ankh-Morpork was before him. It was a little disappointing. He'd expected high white towers rearing over the landscape and flags. Ankh-Morpork didn't rear. Rather, it sort of skulked, clinging to the soil as if someone might steal it. There were no flags. There was a guard on the gate. At least, he was wearing chainmail, and the thing he was propped up against was a spear. He had to be a guard. Carrot saluted him and presented the letter. The man looked at it for some time. "Hmm?" he said, eventually. "I think I've got to see Lupin Squiggles, Seki PP," said Carrot. "What's the PP for?" said the guard suspiciously. "Wouldn't you like to know?" "Could it be pretty promptly?" said Carrot, who had wondered about this himself. "Well, I don't know any Seki," said the guard. "You want Captain Vimes of the Night Watch." "And where is he based?" said Carrot politely. "At this time of day, I'd try the Bunch of Grapes in Easy Street," said the guard. He looked Carrot up and down. "Joining the watch, are you?" "I hope to prove worthy, yes," said Carrot. The guard gave him what could loosely be called an old-fashioned look. It was practically Neolithic. "What was it you done?" he said. "I'm sorry," said Carrot. "You must have done something," said the guard. "My father wrote a letter," said Carrot proudly. "I've been volunteered." "Bloody hellfire," said the guard. Uh, okay, I'm actually going to take a quick break. I've been reading nonstop for hour and 45 minutes. And yeah, gonna take a quick break. I will be back in like 5-10 minutes, and we'll continue reading for a bit if you know people are still enjoying it. But yeah, everyone get up, go stretch, get something to eat, take a piss, do whatever you got to do. We shall return to the story momentarily. Thank you for the hydrate and stretch, Twinkles. Getting on that right now. But yeah, break time. I'm back. That was not even 10 minutes, but whatever. Thanks, Twinkles. I appreciate it. I kind of do voices, but I don't like my voice is kind of monotone in general, so I guess that's why I feel like I don't do them. But thanks. I'm glad that you noticed. I'm glad you're enjoying the my rendition of it. I've never read it, but I am highly enjoying your rendition of it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all are awesome. I was really nervous about doing this stream, um, just because it's different from most of my streams and stuff. But yeah, I'm having a good time doing it. Definitely going to make this a probably a regular thing. Maybe Sundays will just be chill reading streams. Um, yeah, let's get back into it. Also, you should absolutely read some Discworld books, man. Like they're so good, so good. Every one of them. All right, back to it. Actually, not back to it. I'm not actually done taking a break, but I am here. Still have a couple things I need to do. Give me one sec. They're on my list of one of these days I need to read these books. Books, yeah, that's very valid. I have so many books and movies and shows on that list. Now it was night again, and beyond the dread portal. Are the wheels of torment duly spun? Said the Supreme Grand Master. The elucidated brethren shuffled around their circle. Brother Watchtower, said the Supreme Grand Master. Not my job to spin the wheels of torment, muttered Brother Watchtower. Is Brother Plaster's job spinning the wheels of torment? No, it bloody well isn't. It's my job to oil the axles of the universal limon, said Brother Plaster hotly. You always say it's my job. Supreme Grandmaster sighed in the depths of his cowl as yet another row began. From this dross he was going to forge an age of rationality. Just shut up, will you? He snapped. We don't really need the wheels of torment tonight. Stop it, the pair of you. Now, brethren, you have all brought the items as instructed. There was a general murmuring. Place them in the circle of conjuration, said the Supreme Grand Master. Oh, also, if my dictation is a little too fast or like anything like that, just let me know because reading out loud to people is different from like reading out loud to yourself or just reading to yourself, and sometimes I can kind of rush through words and sentences and shit like that. So trying to keep it, to a processable level. But if I start running away, just let me know. That's just right. In your opinion, hell yeah. It was a sorry collection. Bring magical things, he'd said. Only Brother Fingers had produced anything worthwhile. It looked like some sort of altar ornament. best not to ask from where. The Supreme Grand Master stepped forward and prodded one of the other things with his toe. You've got an excellent flow where you're easy to understand without dragging on. Hell yeah. Thanks. That is good to hear. What, he said, is this? This amulet, Brother Dunnikin, is very powerful. Bought it off a man. Guaranteed. Protects you against crocodile bites. Are you sure you can spare it? Said the Supreme Grand Master. There was a dutiful titter from the rest of the brethren. Less of that, brothers, said the Grand Master, spinning around. Bring magical things, I said. Not cheap jewelry and rubbish. Good grief, this city is lousy with magic. He reached down. What are these things, for heaven's sake? They're stones, said Brother Plasterer uncertainly. I can see that. Why are they magical? Brother Plasterer began to tremble. They've got holes in them, Supreme Grand Master. Everyone knows that stones with holes in them are magical. The Supreme Grand Master walked back to his place on the circle. He threw his arms up. Right, fine, okay, he said wearily. If that's how we're going to do it, that's how we're going to do it. If we get a dragon 6 inches long, we'll all know the reason why. Won't we, Brother Plasterer? Brother Plasterer? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Brother Plasterer? I said yes, Supreme Grand Master, whispered Brother Plasterer. Fuck that word. Very well. So long as that's quite understood. The Supreme Grand Master turned and picked up the book. And now, he said, if we are all quite ready, 6-inch long dragon, eh? Hey, yo. It's the entry level bad dragon. Oh, Sora isn't here. Doesn't it the same? I know, right? It's okay. We can still be sussy without Sora. And now, he said, if we are quite ready. Brother Watchtower meekly raised his hand. Ready for what, Supreme Grand Master? He said. For the summoning, of course. Good grief. I should have thought. But you haven't told us what we're supposed to do, Supreme Grand Master, whined Brother Watchtower. The Grand Master hesitated. This was quite true, but he wasn't going to admit it. Well, of course, he said. It's obvious. You have to focus your concentration. Think hard about dragons, he translated. All of you. That's all, is it? Said Brother Doorkeeper. Yes. Don't we have to chant a mystic prune or something? The Supreme Grand Master stared at him. Brother Doorkeeper managed to look as defiant in the face of oppression as an anonymous shadow in a black cowl could look. He hadn't joined a secret society not to chant mystic runes. He'd been looking forward to it. You can if you like, said the Supreme Grand Master. Now, I want you... Yes, what is it, Brother Dunnikin? The little brother lowered his hand. Don't know any mystic prunes, Grand Master. Not to what you might call chant. There are other furry species. You don't have to be a dragon. Yeah, you could be a cat, like me. Meow. Hum. He opened the book. He'd been rather surprised to find, after pages and pages of pious ramblings, that the actual summoning itself was one short sentence. Not a chant, not a brief piece of poetry, but a mere assemblage of meaningless syllables. Demalekite said they caused interference patterns in the waves of reality, but the daft old fool was probably making it up as he went along. That was the trouble with wizards. They had to make everything look difficult. All you really needed was willpower, and the Brethren had a lot of that. Small minded and vitriolic willpower, yes, lousy with malignity, maybe, but still powerful enough in its way. They'd try nothing fancy this time round, somewhere inconspicuous. Around him, the brethren were chanting what each man considered, according to his lights, to be something mystical. The general effect was actually quite good if you didn't listen to the words. The words. Oh, yes. He looked down and spoke them aloud. Nothing happened. He blinked. When he opened his eyes, when he opened his eyes again, he was in a dark alley. His stomach was full of fire, and he was very angry. It was about to be the worst night of his life for Zebo Muti, thief third class, and it wouldn't have made him any happier to know that it was also going to be the last one. The rain was keeping people indoors, and he was way behind on his quota. He was, therefore, a little less cautious than he might otherwise have been. In the nighttime streets of Ankh-Morpork, caution is an absolute. There is no such thing as moderately cautious. You are either very cautious or you are dead. You might be walking around and breathing, but you're dead just the same. Belly full of fire. Uh-oh. Yeah. Uh-oh. Pinky. He heard the muffled sounds coming from the nearby alley, slid his leather-bound kosh from his sleeve, waited until the victim was almost turning the corner, sprang out, and said, "Oh shit!" and died. It was a most unusual death. No one else had died like that for hundreds of years. The stone wall behind him glowed cherry red with heat, which gradually faded into darkness. He was the first to see the Ankh-Morpork dragon. He derived little comfort from knowing this, however, because he was dead. He said, and his disembodied self looked down at the small heap of charcoal, which he knew with an unfamiliar sort of certainty was what he had just been disembodied from. It was a strange sensation, seeing your own mortal remains. He didn't find it as horrifying as he would have imagined if you'd asked him, say, 10 minutes ago. Finding that you are dead is mitigated by also finding that there really is a you who can find you dead. The alley opposite was empty again. That was really strange, said Moody. Extremely unusual, certainly. Did you see that? What was it? Moody looked up at the dark figure emerging from the shadows. Who are you, anyway? He added suspiciously. Guess, said the voice. Moody peered at the hooded figure. Or, he said, I thought you didn't turn up for the likes of me. I turn up for everyone. I mean, in person sort of thing. Sometimes, on special occasions. Yeah, well, said Moody, this is one of them, all right. I mean, it looked like a bloody dragon. What's a man to do? You don't expect to find a dragon round the corner. And now, if you would care to step this way, said Death, laying a skeletal hand on Moody's shoulder. Do you know, a fortune teller once told me I'd die in my bed, surrounded by grieving great-grandchildren, said Moody, following the stately figure. What do you think of that, eh? I think she was wrong. A bloody dragon, said Moody. Fire-breathing, too. Did I suffer much? No, it was practically instantaneous. That's good. I wouldn't like to think I'd suffered much. Moody looked around him. What happens now? He said. Behind them, the rain washed the little heap of black ash into the mud. I really like doing the voice for death. The Supreme Grand Master opened his eyes. He was lying on his back. Brother Dunnikin was preparing to give him the kiss of life. The mere thought was enough to jerk anyone from the borders of consciousness. It's a good death voice, thank you. He sat up, trying to shed the feeling that he weighed several tons and was covered in scales. We did it, he whispered. The dragon. It came. I felt it. Hey, yo. Anyway, the brethren glanced at one another. We never saw nothing, said Brother Plasterer. I might have seen something, said Brother Watchtower loyally. No, not here, snapped the Supreme Grand Master. You hardly want it to materialize here, do you? It was out there in the city, just for a few seconds. He pointed. Look! The brethren turned around guiltily, expecting at any moment the hot flame of retribution. In the center of the circle, the magic items were gently crumbling to dust. Even as they watched, Brother Dunnikin's amulet collapsed. Sucked dry, whispered Brother Fingers. I'll be damned. $3 that amulet cost me, muttered Brother Dunnikin. But it proves it works, said the Supreme Grand Master. Don't you see, you fools? It works. We can summon dragons. Could be a bit expensive in magical items, said Brother Fingers doubtfully. $3 it was. No rubbish. Power, growled the Supreme Grand Master, does not come cheap. Very true, nodded Brother Watchtower. Not cheap. Very true. He looked at the little heap of exhausted magic again. Core, he said. We did it, though, didn't we? We only went and bloody well did some magic, right? Brother Fingers doesn't strike me as the guy who pays for stuff in it. Yeah, exactly. Like, what does he care how much it costs? He's fucking literally a thief. See, said Brother Fingers. I told you there was nothing to it. You all did exceptionally well, said the Supreme Grand Master encouragingly. Should have been $6, but he said he'd cut his own throat and sell it to me for $3. Yeah, said Brother Watchtower. We got the hang of it all right. Didn't hurt a bit. We done real magic. And didn't get et by tooth fairies from out of the woodwork either, Brother Plasterer, I couldn't help noticing. The other brethren nodded. Real magic. Nothing to it. Everyone had just better watch out. Hang on, though, said Brother Plasterer. Where's this dragon gone? I mean, did we really summon it or not? Fancy you asking a silly question like that, said Brother Watchtower doubtfully. The Supreme Grand Master brushed the dust off his mystic robe. We summoned it, he said, and it came, but only as long as the magic lasted. Then it went back. If we want it to stay longer, we need more magic. Understand? And that is what we must get. $3 I shan't see again in a hurry. Shut up! Dearest Father, wrote Carrot, well, here I am in Ankh-Morpork. It is not like at home. I think it must have changed a bit since Mr. Varnishy's great-grandfather was here. I don't think people here know right from wrong. I found Captain Vimes in a common alehouse. I remembered what you said about a good dwarf not going into such places, but since he did not come out, I went in. He was lying with his head on the table. When I spoke to him, he said, pull the other one, kid. It has got bells on. I believe he was the worse for drink. Ooh, I'm not too late. Yeah, hi, Pancake. Welcome in. We are 39 pages into Guards. Of course, you've heard me read all of it before anyway, but yes, glad you could make it. We've been having a pretty good time. The setup chapters are about done. Now it's time to get to the good part. Yeah, exactly. We're just getting into the actual meat of the book. This one kind of has a slow burn at the start, but finally getting to the good stuff. If I can get this frog out of my throat all of a sudden. Ah, it's a lot of talking. There's your night going. Don't feel free to make comments and stuff. Like, I don't want to just be reading to a silent room. Anyway, I believe he was the worse for drink. He told me to find a place to stay and report to Sergeant Colin at the watch house tonight. He said anyone wanting to join the guard needed their head examined. Okay, we'll commentate. Bet. Mr. Varneshy did not mention this. Perhaps it is done for reasons of hygiene. I went for a walk. There are many people here. I found a place. It is called The Shades. Then I saw some men trying to rob a young lady. I set about them. They did not know how to fight properly, and one of them tried to kick me in the vitals, but I was wearing the protective as instructed, and he hurt himself. Then the lady came up to me and said, was I interested in bed? I said yes. She took me to where she lived, a boarding house, I think it is called. It is run by a Mrs. Palm. The lady, whose purse it was, she is called Reet, said, you should have seen him. There were 3 of them. It was amazing. Mrs. Palm said, it is on the house. She said, what a big protective. So I went upstairs and fell asleep, although it is a very noisy place. Reet woke me up once or twice to say, do you want anything? But they had no apples. So I have fallen on my feet, as they say here. But I don't see how that is possible, because if you fall off your feet. It is common sense. There is certainly a lot to do. When I went to see the sergeant, I saw a place called the Thieves' Guild. I asked Mrs. Palm, and she said, of course. She said the leaders of the thieves in the city meet there. By the way, all of this I'm reading this way because this is just how Carrot writes. Like, a very fat man. I went to the watch house and met Sergeant Colin, a very fat man. And when I told him about the Thieves' Guild, he said, don't be an idiot. I do not think he is serious. He says, don't you worry about thieves' guilds. This is all what you have to do. You walk along the streets at night, shouting, it's 12 o'clock and all's well. I said, what if it is not all well? And he said, you bloody well find another street. This is not leadership. It is a good narration style. Yeah. I have been given some chainmail. It is rusty and not well made. They give you money for being a guard. It is $20 a month. When I get it, I will send you it. I hope you are all well and that shaft number 5 is now open. This afternoon, I will go and look at the Thieves' Guild. It is disgraceful. If I do something about it, it will be a feather in my cap. I am getting the hang of how they talk here already. Your loving son, Carrot. P.S. Please give all my love to Minty. I really miss her. Lord Vetinary, the patrician of Ankh-Morpork, put his hand over his eyes. He did what? I was marched through the streets, said Erdo Van Pew, currently president of the Guild of Thieves, Burglars, and Allied Trades. Oh my god, I totally forgot Carrot was a dwarf. Yes, he really is extremely simple. He's so simple. He's the simplest boy on earth. But he's not stupid. In broad daylight, with my hands tied together. He took a few steps towards the patrician's severe chair of office, waving a finger. You know very well that we have kept within the budget, he said. To be humiliated like that, like a common criminal, there had better be a full apology, he said, or you will have another strike on your hands. We will be driven to it, despite our natural civic responsibilities, he added. It was the finger. The finger was a mistake. The patrician was staring coldly at the finger. Van Pew followed his gaze and quickly lowered the digit. The patrician was not a man you shook a finger at unless you wanted to end up being able to count only to 9. Did you say this was one person? Said Lord Vetinary. Yes, that is. Van Pew hesitated. It did sound weird, now he came to tell someone. But there are hundreds of you in there, said the patrician calmly. Thick as, you should excuse the expression, thieves. Van Pew opened and shut his mouth a few times. The honest answer would have been yes, and if anyone had come sidling in and skulking around the corridors, it would have been the worse for them. It was the way he strode in as if he owned the place that fooled everyone. That, and the fact that he kept hitting people and telling them to mend their ways. The patrician nodded. I shall deal with the matter momentarily, he said. It was a good word. It always made people hesitate. They were never quite sure whether he meant he'd deal with it now or just deal with it briefly. And no one ever dared ask. Van Pew backed down. I love the patrician, by the way. He's so good. Full apology, mark you. I have a position to maintain. He added. Thank you. Do not let me detain you, said the patrician, once again giving the language his own individual spin. Right. Good. Thank you. Very well, said the thief. After all, you have such a lot of work to do, said Lord Vetinary went on. Well, of course, this is the case. The thief hesitated. The patrician's last remark had barbs on it. You found yourself waiting for him to strike. He said, hoping for a clue. With so much business being conducted, that is. Panic took over the thief's features. Randomized guilt flooded his mind. It wasn't a case of what had he done. It was a question of what the patrician had found out about. The man had eyes everywhere, none of them so terrifying as the icy blue ones just above his nose. I don't quite follow, he began. Curious choice of targets. The patrician picked up a sheet of paper. For example, a crystal ball belonging to a fortune teller in Shear Street, a small ornament from the temple of Offler, the crocodile god, and so on. Gugas. I am afraid I really don't know, said the head thief. The patrician leaned forward. No unlicensed thieving, surely? he said. Hi, robot. I'm Big Lurkin. Love you. Hi, Kami. Thanks for lurking. I'm reading a book. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you for popping in, though. It's good to see you. Hope your day's been going well. Happy Easter. No unlicensed thieving, surely, he said. Footnote. One of the remarkable innovations introduced by the patrician was to make the Thieves Guild responsible for theft, with annual budgets, forward planning, and, above all, rigid job protection. Thus, in return for an agreed average level of crime per annum, the thieves themselves saw to it that unauthorized crime was met with the full force of injustice, which was generally a stick with nails in it. Let's see. I shall look into it directly, stuttered the head thief. Depend upon it. The patrician gave him a sweet smile. I'm sure I can, he said. Thank you for coming to see me. Don't hesitate to leave. The thief shuffled out. It was always like this with the patrician, he reflected bitterly. You came to him with a perfectly reasonable complaint. Next thing you knew, you were shuffling out backwards, bowing and scraping, relieved simply to be getting away. You had to hand it to the patrician, he admitted grudgingly. If you didn't, he sent men to come take it away. When he'd gone, Lord Vetinari rang the little bronze bell that summoned his secretary. The man's name, despite his handwriting, was Lupine Wants. He appeared, pen poised. You could say this about Lupin. Is it Lupin, Lupine, Lupine? Never had to pronounce it. What do y'all think? Lupine. I could go multiple ways on how that's pronounced. Lupine. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Lupin the Third. Depends on the origin. Now we're going with Lupine. Lupin wants Lupin. Yeah, we'll go with Lupin. Yeah. You could say this about Lupin wants. He was neat. He always gave the impression of just being completed. Even his hair was so smoothed down and oiled it looked as though it had been painted on. French it would be Lupine. Yeah. I don't know. We're going with Lupin. Lude Pinor. Yes, exactly. That's his new name. Lude Pinor. Not actually. I'm not carrying that through, but maybe. F the French, though. Yeah. The watch appears to be having some difficulty with the Thieves Guild, said the patrician. Van Pew has been in here claiming that a member of the watch arrested him. What for? What for, sir? Being a thief, apparently. A member of the watch? Said the secretary. I know, but just sort it out, will you? The patrician smiled to himself. It was always hard to fathom Lord Vetinari's idiosyncratic sense of humor, but a vision of the red-faced, irate head thief kept coming back to him. One of the patrician's greatest contributions to the reliable operation of Ankh-Morpork had been, very early in his administration, the legalizing of the ancient guild of thieves. Crime was always with us, he reasoned, and therefore, if you were going to have crime, it at least should be organized crime. Now we know why the signature ends with PP. Yeah. Lude Pinor. And so the guild had been encouraged to come out of the shadows and build a big guild house, take their place at civic banquets, and set up their training college with day release courses and city and guild certificates and everything. In exchange for the winding down of the watch, they agreed, while trying to keep their faces straight, to keep crime levels to a level to be determined annually. That way, everyone could plan ahead, said Lord Vetinari, and part of the uncertainty had been removed from the chaos that is life. And then, a little while later, the patricians summoned the leading thieves again and said, "Oh, by the way, there was something else. What was it now? Oh, yes. I know who you are," he said. "I know where you live. I know what kind of horse you ride. I know where your wife has her hair done. I know where your lovely children, how old are they now? My, doesn't time fly? I know where they play. So, you won't forget about what we agreed, will you?" And he smiled. So did they, after a fashion. And, in fact, it had turned out very satisfactorily from everyone's point of view. It took the head thieves a very little time to grow paunches and start having coats of arms made and meet in a proper building rather than smoky dens, which no one had liked much. A complicated arrangement of receipts and vouchers saw to it that, while everyone was eligible for the attentions of the guild, no one had too much, and this was very acceptable, at least to those citizens who were rich enough to afford the quite reasonable premiums the guild charged for an uninterrupted life. There was a strange foreign word for this: in sewer ants. No one knew exactly what it had originally meant, but Ankh-Morpork had made it its own. The watch hadn't liked it, but the plain fact was that the thieves were far better at controlling crime than the watch had ever been. After all, the watch had to work twice as hard to cut crime just a little, whereas all the guild had to do was to work less. Ah, yes, from the dude with the chest. The what? And so the city prospered, while the watch had dwindled away like a useless appendix into a handful of unemployables who no one in their right mind could ever take seriously. In sewer ants, dude with the chest. Damn, it's late. I can't remember. Huh. Oh, Rincewind? Yeah, 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 that's right. Rincewind was the one that introduced Insurance to Aquapool. Yeah. Okay. Two flower. Two flower. Okay, yes. I was thinking of it, the Rincewind, first Rincewind book, which is the first Discworld book, called Color of Magic or Light Fantastic. No, Light. It's Color of Magic. Light Fantastic is the second one. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's actually been a long time since I've read the first two books because Rincewind's stories are kind of they're okay. He's kind of one of my least favorite Discworld characters, to be honest. But the luggage is one of the best. But I digress. The last thing anyone wanted them to do was get it into their heads to fight crime. But seeing the head thief discommoded was always worth the trouble, the patrician felt. Captain Vimes knocked very hesitantly at the door, because each tap echoed around his skull. Enter. Vimes removed his helmet, tucked it under his arm, and pushed the door open. Its creak was a blunt saw across the front of his brain. He always felt uneasy in the presence of Lupine wants. Come to that, he felt uneasy in the presence of Lord Vetinari. But that was different. That was down to breeding and ordinary fear, of course. Whereas he'd known wants since their childhood in the Shades. The boy had shown promise even then. He was never a gang leader. Never a gang leader. Hadn't got the strength or stamina for that. And, after all, what was the point in being the gang leader? Behind every gang leader were a couple of lieutenants bucking for promotion. Being a gang leader is not a job with long-term prospects. But in every gang, there is a pale youth who's allowed to stay because he's the only one who comes up with all the clever ideas, usually to do with old women and unlocked shops. This was Wance's natural place in the order of things. Vimes had been one of the middle rankers, the falsetto equivalent of a yes man. He remembered Wance as a skinny little kid, always tagging along behind in hand-me-down pants with the kind of odd skipping run he'd invented to keep up with the bigger boys, and forever coming up with fresh ideas to stop them idly ganging up on him, which was the usual recreation if nothing more interesting presented itself. It was superb training for the rigors of adulthood, and Wance became good at it. Yes, they'd both started in the gutter, but Wance had worked his way up, whereas, as he himself would be the first to admit, Vimes had merely worked his way along. Every time he seemed to be getting anywhere, he spoke his mind or said the wrong thing, usually both at once. That was what made him uncomfortable around Wance. It was the ticking of the bright clockwork of ambition. Vimes had never mastered ambition. It was something that happened to other people. Ah, Vimes. Sir, said Vimes woodenly. He didn't try to salute in case he fell over. He wished he'd had time to drink dinner. Wance rummaged in the papers of his desk. Strange things afoot, Vimes. Serious complaint. About you, I'm afraid, he said. Wance didn't wear glasses. If he had worn glasses, he'd have peered at Vimes over the top of them. Sir, one of your night watchmen. Seems he arrested the head of the Thieves' Guild. Vimes swayed a little and tried hard to focus. He wasn't ready for this sort of thing. Sorry, sir, he said. Seem to have lost you there. I said, Vimes, that one of your men arrested the head of the Thieves' Guild. My men? Yes. Vimes's scattered brain cells tried valiantly to regroup. A member of the Watch? He said. Wance grinned mirthlessly. Tied him up and left him in front of the palace. There's a bit of a stink about it, I'm afraid. There was a note. Ah, here it is. This man is charged with conspiracy to commit crime under Section 14 of the General Felonies Act, 1678, by me, Carrot Iron Founderson. Vimes squinted at him. 14 I. Apparently, said Wance. What does that mean? I really haven't the faintest notion, said Wance dryly. And what about the name? Carrot? But we don't do things like that, said Vimes. You can't go around arresting the Thieves' Guild. I mean, we'd be at it all day. Apparently, this Carrot thinks otherwise. The captain shook his head and winced. Carrot? Doesn't ring a bell. The tone of blurred conviction was enough even for Wance, who was momentarily taken aback. I have heard it said that ACAB does not apply to Sam Vimes. This is incorrect. ACAB does apply to Sam Vimes, and nobody is more aware of this than Sam Vimes. Yes, very, very true. I love Sam Vimes. He's the only good cop in the multiverse. Except, still a cop. Yeah, he hates cops. He hates himself. He's very relatable. Sam Vimes hates shitty cops. Like, yeah. Which, like, who amongst us does not hate shitty cops? So, cops, yes. Yeah, we'll go with that. Anyway, he was quite. The secretary hesitated. Carrot, Carrot, he said. I've heard the name before. Seen it written down. His face went blank. The volunteer, that was it. Remember me showing you? Vimes stared at him. Wasn't there a letter from, I don't know, some dwarf? All about serving the community and keeping the streets safe. That's right. Begging that his son would be found suitable for a humble position in the watch. The secretary was rummaging among his files. What had he done? Said Vimes. Nothing. That was it. Not a blessed thing. Vimes's brow creased as his thoughts shaped themselves around a new concept. A volunteer? He said. Yes. He didn't have to join. He wanted to join. And you said it must be a joke. And I said we ought to try and get more ethnic minorities into the watch. You remember? Vimes tried to. It wasn't easy. He was vaguely aware that he drank to forget. What made it rather pointless was that he couldn't remember what it was he was forgetting anymore. In the end, he just drank to forget about drinking. A trawl of the chaotic assortment of recollections that he didn't even try to identify anymore by the name of memory produced no clue. Do I? He said helplessly. Once folded his hands on the desk and leaned forward. Now look, Captain, he said. Lordship wants an explanation. I don't want to have to tell him the captain of the night watch hasn't the faintest idea what goes on among the men under, if I may use the term loosely, his command. That sort of thing only leads to trouble. Questions asked, that sort of thing. We don't want that, do we? Do we? No, sir, Vimes muttered. A vague recollection of someone earnestly talking to him in the bunch of grapes was bobbing guiltily at the back of his mind. Surely that hadn't been a dwarf. Not unless the qualification had been radically altered, at any rate. Of course we don't, said Wance. For old time's sake. And so on. So I'll think of something to tell him, and you, Captain, will make a point of finding out what's going on and putting a stop to it. Give this dwarf a short lesson in what it means to be a guard, all right? Ha ha, said Vimes dutifully. I'm sorry, said Wance. Oh, thought you made an ethnic joke there, sir. Look, Vimes, I'm being very understanding, in the circumstances. Now, I want you to get out there and sort this out. Do you understand? Vimes saluted. The black depression that always lurked ready to take advantage of his sobriety moved in on his tongue. Right you are, Mr. Secretary, he said. I'll see to it that he learns that arresting thieves is against the law. He wished he hadn't said that. If he didn't say things like that, he'd have been better off now. Captain of the Palace Guard, a big man. Giving him the watch had been the patrician's little joke. But Wance was already reading a new document on his desk. If he noticed the sarcasm, he didn't show it. Very good, he said. Take a quick break. Hydrate. Dearest mother, Carrot wrote, it has been a much better day. I went into the Thieves' Guild and arrested the chief miscreant and dragged him to the patrician's palace. No more trouble from him, I fancy. And Mrs. Palm says I can stay in the little attic, or stay in the attic, because it is always useful to have a man around the place. This was because, in the night, there were men the worse for drink making a fuss in one of the girls' rooms, and I had to speak to them. They showed fight, and one of them tried to hurt me with his knee, but I had the protective. Mrs. Palm says he has broken his patella, but I needn't pay for a new one. I do not understand some of the watch duties. I have a partner. His name is Nobby. He says I am too keen. He says I have got a lot to learn. I think this is true because I have only got up to page 326 in the Laws and Ordinances of the Cities of Ankh-Morpork. Love to all, your son, Carrot. P.S. Love to Minty. Nobby, yes. Nobby. Nobby Knobs. Fucking love Nobby. All the characters are so good, but like, yeah, Nobby is amazing. It wasn't just the loneliness, it was the back to front way of living. That was it, thought Vimes. The night watch got up when the rest of the world was going to bed, went to bed when the dawn drifted over the landscape. You spent your whole time in the damp, dark streets in a world of shadows. The night watch attracted the kind of people who, for one reason or another, were inclined to that kind of life. He reached the watch house. It was an ancient and surprisingly large building, wedged between a tannery and a tailor who made suspicious leather goods. It must have been quite imposing once, but quite a lot of it was now uninhabitable and patrolled only by owls and rats. Over the door, a motto in the ancient tongue of the city was now almost eroded by time and grime and lichen, but could just be made out. Fabricati diem, punk. It translated, according to Sergeant Colon, who had served in foreign parts and considered himself an expert on languages, as to protect and serve. Thanks for the hydrate and stretch, Twinkles. I don't know if you can hear my joints popping, but they be doing that. Yes, I'd still have drink. Can hear that? Excellent. I want y'all to miss out on the symphony. Yeah. All right. Fabricati DM Punk is like the best shit ever. Yes, being a guard must have meant something once. Sergeant Colon, he thought, as he stumbled into the musty gloom. Now there was a man who liked the dark. Sergeant Colon owed 30 years of happy marriage to the fact that Mrs. Colon worked all day and Sergeant Colon worked all night. They communicated by means of notes. He got her tea ready before he left at night. She left his breakfast nice and hot in the oven in the mornings. They had 3 grown-up children, all born, Vimes had assumed, as a result of extremely persuasive handwriting. Twink beat you to it. And Wab. All night watch are bastards. Very true. And Corporal Nobbs. Well, anyone like Nobby had unlimited reasons for not wishing to be seen by other people. You didn't have to think hard about that. The only reason you couldn't say that Nobby was close to the animal kingdom was that the animal kingdom would get up and walk away. And then, of course, there was himself. Just a skinny, unshaven collection of bad habits marinated in alcohol. And that was the night watch. Just the three of them. Once there had been dozens, hundreds. And now, just three. Vimes fumbled his way up the stairs, groped his way into his office, slumped into the primeval leather chair with its prolapsed stuffing, scrabbled at the bottom drawer, grabbed bottle, bit cork, tugged, spat out cork, drank. Began his day. The world swam into focus. Life is just chemicals. A drop here, a drip there. Everything's changed. A mere dribble of fermented juices, and suddenly you're going to live another few hours. Once, in the days when this had been a respectable district, some hopeful owner of the tavern next door had paid a wizard a considerable sum of money for an illuminated sign. Every letter a different color. Now it worked erratically, and sometimes short-circuited in the damp. At the moment, the E was a garish pink and flashed on and off at random. Prolapsed stuffing is a hell of a description. Yes, Pratchett certainly has a way with words. Vimes had grown accustomed to it. It seemed like part of life. He stared at the flickering play of light on the crumbling plaster for a while, and then raised one sandaled foot and thumped heavily on the floorboards twice. See, in the early watch books, like the first two, I think, they talk about them wearing sandals all the time, and then it's very swiftly like boots. Like, it's the boots. Always the boots. I think it's maybe only this book, actually, where they have sandals. Ever since Disco Elysium came out, I get imagined vibes as the Harry Dubois look. Uh, yeah, I could see that. Except, yeah, like a skinny Harry, basically. Canonically, I think he's kind of supposed to look like Clint Eastwood, like back in the 70s, like just kind of a skinny, like hatchet faced kind of dickhead. Yeah, exactly. Clint Eastwood soaked in booze and the gutter. Yeah, basically. I see the vision. He stared at the flickering play of yeah. After a few minutes, a distant wheezing indicated that Sergeant Colin was climbing the stairs. Vimes counted silently, currently sipping a nice Japanese whiskey that Vimes 100% would not appreciate but drink anyway. Yeah. He does appreciate good whiskey. He just also knows that like it's not worth it to buy it because he'll just fucking slam it down. Like it's not that he doesn't appreciate it. He knows he knows his limits. Your avatar is just vibrating. The Techno Kitty is super excited to be reading books. Yeah, I could probably turn the trigger up on that a little bit so I'm not just like constantly, if I can remember how to do that. Yes, here we go. Leave it. Yeah, but it looks all weird and shit if it does that. It's still, see, I bumped it up a lot and it's still doing that, so who cares? Robokitty. This is on Twitch after all. Yeah, that's very true. Good points all. Very, very true. Vimes counted silently. Colin always paused for 6 seconds at the top of the flight to get some of his breath back. On the seventh second, the door opened. The sergeant's face appeared around it like a harvest moon. You could describe Sergeant Colin like this. He was the sort of man who, if he took up a military career, would automatically gravitate to the post of sergeant. You couldn't imagine him ever being a corporal, or, for that matter, a captain. If he didn't take up a military career, then he looked cut out for something like, perhaps, a butcher. Some job where a big red face and a tendency to sweat even in frosty weather were practically part of the specification. I mean, if you read the book while riding a certain object, you could probably put it on like on like OnlyFans or Fansly. Then the vibrating would be super fitting. I am not um I am not doing that. Just nah. I don't think nobody like it would just be the avatar. If I was on OnlyFans or something, it would have to be like me, and I'm not doing. Nobody wants to watch that. I don't want to watch that. Nobody wants to see that. There's zero fun, robot. Yeah, I know. I don't want to like super fitting joke with Chloe because it's almost there. When do we get foot pics for free? Like, you think you get foot pics for free? I don't know about that. Nobody wants to see my fucking feet either. Like, I'm like just average looking dude. Ain't nobody want to see that. They won't pay for that. They could just get that like they can get that anywhere. Adding robot to wiki feet. Uh-uh. What the fuck? You don't have pictures of my feet. I hope not. Bro, it is the internet. It may not be the person, but I guarantee that someone would pay money for robo feet. Yeah, probably. Terrified that's a thing that exists. It's the internet. Like, I would have been more shocked if WikiFeet was not a thing. Like, just saying. I can almost guarantee I can find a pic of your feet somewhere. Maybe. Maybe. Let's see. All right. He saluted and, with considerable care, placed a scruffy piece of paper on Vimes's desk and smoothed it out. Evening, Captain, he said. Yesterday's incident reports in that. Also, you owe 4 pence to the tea club. This got weird real fast. Only one of the mini services I provide. Yeah, it's all good. What's this about? What's this about a dwarf, Sergeant? Said Vimes abruptly. Colin's brow wrinkled. What dwarf? The one who's just joined the watch. Name of. Vimes hesitated. Carrot or something. Him? Colin's mouth dropped open. He's a dwarf? I always said you couldn't trust them little buggers. He fooled me all right, Captain. The little sod must have lied about his height. Colin was a sizist, at least when it came to people smaller than himself. Do you know he arrested the president of the Thieves Guild this morning? What for? For being president of the Thieves Guild, it seems. The sergeant looked puzzled. Where's the crime in that? I think perhaps I had better have a word with this carrot, said Vimes. It's okay. Robot knows us well enough that I'd be disappointed if he didn't expect us to make it weird. Yeah, very true. Very true. I'd be sad if nobody made it weird. Didn't you see him, sir? Said Colin. He said he'd reported to you, sir. I must have been busy at the time. Lot on my mind, said Vimes. Yes, sir, said Colin politely. Vimes had just enough self-respect left to look away and shuffle the strata of paperwork on his desk. We've got to get him off the streets as soon as possible, he muttered. Next thing you know, he'll be bringing in the chief of the Assassins Guild for bloody well killing people. Where is he? I sent him out with Corporal Nobbs, Captain. I said he'd show him the ropes, sort of thing. You sent a raw recruit out with Nobby? Said Vimes wearily. Colin stuttered. Well, sir, experienced man, I thought. Corporal Nobbs could teach him a lot. Let's just hope he's a slow learner, said Vimes, ramming his brown iron helmet on his head. Come on. When they stepped out of the watch house, there was a ladder against the tavern wall. A bulky man at the top of it swore under his breath as he wrestled with the illuminated sign. It's the E that doesn't work properly, Vimes called up. What? The E. And the T sizzles when it rains. It's about time it was fixed. Fixed? Oh, yes, fixed. That's what I'm doing, all right. Fixing. The watchman splashed off through the puddles. Brother Watchtower shook his head slowly and turned his attention once again to his screwdriver. All right. I'm going to take another short break because it's been like another hour and a half. I don't know. It's kind of getting late. It's on a Sunday. I don't know what y'all's opinion is about continuing or not continuing or anything like that. I don't know. How y'all feeling? I could read more. I could end the stream after the break or one more chapter. All right, let me see. This book actually doesn't really do chapters, but where's the next? Yeah. All right. We can keep going for a little bit after the break. Not asleep yet, so you should keep reading yourself. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna take a quick 5-10 minute break, something like that, and we'll read a little bit more for y'all. Glad you are enjoying it. Back soon. I'm back. I think there's like 10 or 12 more pages. Another stopping point. We'll see. It could either be like fucking 6 pages or 12 pages. Depends. But yeah. Thank you, thank you. Men like Corporal Nobbs can be found in every armed force. Although their grasp of the minutiae of the regulations is usually encyclopedic, they take good care never to be promoted beyond, perhaps, corporal. He tended to speak out of the corner of his mouth. He smoked incessantly, but the weird thing, Carrot noticed, was that any cigarette smoked by Nobby became a dog end almost instantly, but remained a dog end indefinitely, or until lodged behind his ear, which was a sort of nicotine elephant's graveyard. On the rare occasions he took one out of his mouth, he cupped it in his hand. He was a small, bandy legged man, with a certain resemblance to a chimpanzee who never got invited to tea parties. His age was indeterminate, but in cynicism and general world weariness, which is a sort of carbon dating of the personality, he was about 7,000 years old. Yeah, I feel that. A cushy number, this route, he said, as they strolled along a damp street in the merchant's quarter. He tried a door handle. It was locked. You stick with me, he added, and I'll see you're all right. Now, you try the handles on the other side of the street. Ah, I understand, Corporal Nobbs. We've got to see if anyone's left their store unlocked, said Carrot. Catch on fast, son. I hope I can apprehend a miscreant in the act, said Carrot zealously. Yeah, said Nobby, uncertainly. But if we find a door unlocked, I suppose we must summon the owner, Carrot went on, and one of us would have to stay to guard things, right? Yeah? Nobby brightened. I'll do that, he said. Don't you worry about it. Then you could go and find the victim. Owner, I mean. He tried another doorknob. It turned under his grip. Back in the mountains, said Carrot, if a thief was caught, he was hung up by the. He paused, idly rattling a doorknob. Nobby froze. By the what? He said, in horrified fascination. Can't remember now, said Carrot. My mother said it was too good for them anyway. Stealing is wrong. Nobby had survived any number of famous massacres by not being there. He let go of the doorknob and gave it a friendly pat. Got it, said Carrot. Nobby jumped. Got what? He shouted. Remember what we hung them up by, said Carrot. Oh, said Nobby weakly. Where? We hang them up by the town hall, said Carrot. Sometimes for days. They don't do it again, I can tell you. And Bjorn's strong in the arms, your uncle. Nobby leaned his pike against the wall and fumbled a fag end from the recesses of his ear. One or two things, he decided, needed to be sorted out. Why did you have to become a guard, lad? He said. Everyone keeps on asking me that, said Carrot. I didn't have to. I wanted to. It will make a man of me. Nobby never looked anyone directly in the eye. He stared at Carrot's right ear in amazement. You mean you ain't running away from anything? He said. What would I want to run away from anything for? Nobby floundered a bit. There's always something. Maybe he was wrongly accused of something. Like, maybe, he grinned. Maybe the stores was mysteriously short on certain items and you was unjustly blamed. Or certain items was found in your kit and you never knew how they got there. That sort of thing. You can tell old Nobby. Or, he nudged Carrot, perhaps it was something else, eh? Cherchez la femme, eh? Got the girl into trouble. Carrot began, and then remembered that, yes, one should tell the truth, even to odd people like Nobby, who didn't seem to know what it was. And the truth was that he was always getting Minty in trouble, although exactly how and why was a bit of a mystery. Just about every time he left after paying calls on her at the Rocksmacker cave, he could hear her father and her mother shouting at her. They were always very polite to him, but somehow merely being seen with him was enough to get Minty into trouble. Yes, he said. Ah, often the case, said Nobby wisely. All the time, said Carrot. Just about every night, really. Blimey, said Nobby, impressed. He looked down at the protective. Is that why they make you wear that, then? What do you mean? Well, don't worry about it, said Nobby. Everyone's got their little secret. Or big secret, as it might be. Even the captain. He's only with us because he was brung low by a woman. That's what the sergeant says. Brung low. Goodness, said Carrot. It sounded painful. But I reckon it's 'cause he speaks his mind. Spoke it once too often to the patrician, I heard. Said the Thieves' Guild was nothing but a pack of thieves, or something. That's why he's with us. Dunno, really. He looked speculatively at the pavement, and then said, So where are you staying, lad? There's a lady called Mrs. Palm, Carrot began. Nobby choked on some smoke that went the wrong way. In the shades? He wheezed. You're staying there? Oh, yes. Every night? Well, every day, really, yes. And you've come here to have a man made of you? Yes. I think I should like to live where you're from, said Nobby. Look, said Carrot, thoroughly lost. I came because Mr. Varneshy said it was the finest job in the world, upholding the law and everything. That's right, isn't it? Well, said Nobby. As to that, I mean, upholding the law, I mean, once, yes, before we had all the guilds and stuff. The law sort of thing ain't really, I mean, these days everything's more, I don't know. Basically, you just ring your bell and keep your head down. Nobby sighed. Then he grunted, snatched his hourglass from his belt, and peered in at the rapidly draining sand grains. He put it back, pulled the leather muffler off his bell's clapper, and shook it once or twice, not very loudly. 12 of the o'clock, he muttered. All's well. And that's it, is it? Said Carrot, as the tiny echoes died away. More or less. More or less. Nobby took a quick drag on his dog end. Just that? No moonlight chases across rooftops? No swinging on chandeliers? Nothing like that? Said Carrot. Shouldn't think so, said Nobby fervently. I never done anything like that. No one ever said anything to me about that. He snatched a puff on the cigarette. A man could catch his death of cold chasing around on rooftops. I reckon I'll stick to the bell if it's all the same to you. Can I have a go? Said Carrot. Nobby was feeling unbalanced. It can be the only reason why he made the mistake of wordlessly handing Carrot the bell. Carrot examined it for a few seconds. Then he waved it vigorously over his head. 12 o'clock, he bellowed, and all's well. The echoes bounced back and forth across the street, and finally were overwhelmed by a horrible, thick silence. Several dogs barked somewhere in the night. A baby started crying. Hissed Nobby. I don't even know if it picked that up. Well, it is all well, isn't it? Said Carrot. It won't be if you keep on ringing that bloody bell. Give it here. I don't understand, said Carrot. Look, I've got this book Mr. Varneshy gave me. He fumbled for the laws and ordinances. Nobby glanced at them and shrugged. Never heard of 'em, he said. Just shut up your row. You don't want to go making a din like that. You could attract all sorts. Come on, this way. He grabbed Carrot's arm and bustled him along the street. What sorts? Protested Carrot as he was pushed determinedly forward. Bad sorts, muttered Nobby. But we're the watch. Damn right. And we don't want to go tangling with people like that. Remember what happened to Gaskin? I don't remember what happened to Gaskin, said Carrot, totally bewildered. Who's Gaskin? Before your time, mumbled Nobby. He deflated a bit. Poor bugger. Could have happened to any of us. He looked up and glared at Carrot. Now stop all this, you hear? It's getting on my nerves. Moonlight bloody chases my bum. He stalked along the street. Nobby's normal method of locomotion was a kind of sidle, and the combination of stalking and sidling at the same time created a strange effect, like a crab limping. But, said Carrot, in this book it says, I don't want to know from no book, growled Nobby. Carrot looked utterly crestfallen. Poor Carrot, very Don Quixote. Yeah. But it's the law, he began. He was nearly terminally interrupted by an axe that whirred out of a low doorway beside him and bounced off the opposite wall. It was followed by sounds of splintering timber and breaking glass. Hey, Nobby, said Carrot urgently. There's a fight going on. Nobby glanced at the doorway. Course there is, he said. It's a dwarf bar. Worst kind. You keep out of there, kid. Them little buggers like to trip you up and then kick 12 kinds of shit out of you. You come along a Nobby and he'll... Did someone say something about windmills? Oh no. He grabbed Carrot's tree trunk arm. It was like trying to tow a building. Carrot had gone pale. Dwarfs drinking and fighting, he said. You bet, said Nobby. All the time. They use the kind of language I wouldn't even use to my own dear mother. You don't want to mix it with them. They're a poisonous bunch of... Don't go in there! No one knows why dwarfs, who at home in the mountains lead quiet, orderly lives, forget it all when they move to the big city. Something comes over even the most blameless iron ore miner and prompts him to wear chainmail all the time, carry an axe, change his name to something like Grab Throat Shin Kicker, and drink himself into surly oblivion. It's probably because they do live such quiet and orderly lives back home. After all, probably the first thing a young dwarf wants to do when he hits the big city after 70 years of working for his father at the bottom of a pit is to have a big drink and then hit someone. The fight was one of those enjoyable dwarfish fights with about 100 participants and 150 alliances. The screams, oaths, and the ringing of axes on iron helmets mingled with the sounds of a drunken group by the fireplace who, another dwarfish custom, were singing about gold. Is this a Mormon allegory? Maybe. Nobby bumped into the back of Carrot, who was watching the scene with horror. Look, it's like this every night in here, said Nobby. Don't interfere. That's what the sergeant says. It's their ethnic folkways or something. You don't go messing with ethnic folkways. But, Carrot stuttered, these are my people. Sort of. It's shameful, acting like this. What must everyone think? We think they're mean little buggers, said Nobby. Now come on. But Carrot had waded into the scuffling mass, cupped his hands around his mouth, and bellowed something in a language Nobby didn't understand. Practically any language, including his native one, would have fitted that description, but in this case it was dwarfish. Gerdusk, Gerdusk, act itzim keberk zim. Translation. Good day, good day. What is all of this that is going on here in this place? The fighting stopped. 100 bearded faces glared up at Carrot's stooped figure, their annoyance mingled with surprise. A battered tankard bounced off his breastplate. A.K.A. what's all this then? Yeah, exactly. Carrot reached down and picked up a struggling figure without apparent effort. Chuck, Idrud, Tidrud, Estutza, Hudrids, Dizekdredzich, Drjuk, Zerkrukt, Bitaduz, Gikik, Miik, Jesus, I'm. There you go. Best I can puzzle through Dwarfish. Your pronunciation is flawless. Thank you. Translated for that. Listen, sunshine. Literally, the stare of the great hot eye in the sky whose fiery gaze penetrates the mouth of the cavern. I don't want to have to give anyone a smacking, so if you play Bit Does with me, I'll play Bit Does with you, okay? Bit Does, a popular dwarfish game which consists of standing a few feet apart and throwing large rocks at one another's head. Okay, the definition for their okay is literally all correctly beamed and propped. Carrot is 100% Mormon coded. Yeah, he really is. No dwarf had ever heard so many old tongue words from the mouth of anyone over 4 feet high. They were astonished. Carrot lowered the offending dwarf to the floor. There were tears in his eyes. You're dwarfs, he said. Dwarfs shouldn't be acting like this. Look at you all. Aren't you ashamed? 100 bone-hard jaws dropped. I mean, look at you. Carrot shook his head. Can you imagine what your poor, white-bearded old mother, slaving away back in her little hole, wondering how her son is getting on tonight, can you imagine what she'd think if she saw you now? Your own dear mothers who first showed you how to use a pickaxe. Nobby, standing by the doorway in terror and amazement, was aware of a growing chorus of nose-blowings and muffled sobs as Carrot went on. She's probably thinking, I expect he's having a quiet game of dominoes or something. A nearby dwarf, wearing a helmet encrusted with 6-inch spikes, started to cry gently into his beer. White-bearded old mother. All dwarfs have beards. That's how it goes. And I bet it's a long time since any of you wrote her a letter, too, and you promised to write every week. Nobby absent-mindedly took out a grubby handkerchief and passed it to a dwarf who was leaning against the wall, shaking with grief. Now then, said Carrot kindly, I don't want to be hard on anyone, but I shall be coming past here every night from now on, and I shall expect to see proper standards of dwarf behavior. I know what it's like when you're far from home, but there's no reason for this sort of thing. He touched his helmet. Geruk, tuk. Evening all, translated literally, felicitations to all present at the closing of the day. He gave them all a bright smile and half walked, half crouched out of the bar. As he emerged into the street, Nobby tapped him on the arm. Don't you ever do anything like that to me again, he fumed. You're in the city watch. Don't give me any more of this law business. But it is very important, said Carrot seriously, trotting after Nobby as he sidled into a narrower street. Not as important as staying in one piece, said Nobby. Dwarf bars. If you've got any sense, my lad, you'll come in here and shut up. Carrot stared up at the building they had reached. It was set back a little from the mud of the street. The sounds of considerable drinking were coming from inside. A battered sign hung over the door. It showed a drum. A tavern, is it? Said Carrot thoughtfully. Open at this hour. Don't see why not, said Nobby, pushing open the door. Damn useful idea. The mended drum. And more drinking? Carrot thumbed hastily through the book. I hope so, said Nobby. He nodded to the troll, which was employed by the drum as a splatter. Footnote. Like a bouncer, but trolls use more force. Carrot has the amazing plot armor of being completely innocent and the size of an oil tanker. Yeah, pretty much. He's kind of really simple in like whatever in this book, but Carrot in the later books is like so badass. Without really trying to be, he's just like, yeah. Evening, detritus. Just showing the new lad the ropes. The troll grunted and waved a crusted arm. The inside of the mended drum is now legendary as the most famous disreputable tavern on the Discworld, and such a feature of the city that, after recent unavoidable redecorations, the new owner spent days recreating the original patina of dirt, soot, and less identifiable substances on the walls and imported a ton of pre-rotted rushes for the floor. The drinkers were the usual bunch of heroes, cutthroats, mercenaries, desperados, and villains, and only microscopic analysis could have told which was which. Thick coils of smoke hung in the air, perhaps to avoid touching the walls. The conversation dipped fractionally as the two guards wandered in, and then rose to its former level. A couple of cronies waved to Nobby. He realized that Carrot was busy. What you doing? He said. And no talking about mothers, right? I'm taking notes, said Carrot grimly. A notebook. That's the ticket, said Nobby. You'll like this place. I comes here every night for my supper. How do you spell contravention? Said Carrot, turning over a page. I don't, said Nobby, pushing through the crowds. A rare impulse to generosity lodged in his mind. What do you want to drink? I don't think that would be very appropriate, said Carrot. Anyway, strong drink is a mocker. He was aware of a penetrating stare in the back of his neck, and turned and looked into the big, bland, and gentle face of an orangutan. I don't. That's my favorite reply ever. I know, right? Like, how do you do? I don't. I've used that a few times. Like, someone, I forget, I was at work and someone asked me something the other, like, how do you do it? How do you do this? And I was just like, I don't. Like, nope. Not my pig, not my farm. I ain't fucking that. It was seated at the bar with a pint mug and a bowl of peanuts in front of it. It tilted its glass amicably towards Carrot, and then drank deeply and noisily by apparently forming its lower lip into a sort of prehensile funnel and making a noise like a canal being drained. I go for not my circus, not my dumbass. Yeah, that works too. I like when someone asks me where someone is and I have no clue. I just be like, it's not my day to watch them. But yeah, that implies that if it was your pig and it were your farm, you would. No. Still no. It was seated at the. Anyway, Kenobi. Carrot nudged Nabi. There's a monk, he began. Don't say it, said Nobby urgently. Don't say the word. It's the librarian. Works up at the university. Always comes down here for a nightcap of an evening. And people don't object? Why should they? Said Nobby. He always stands his ground, just like everyone else. Carrot turned and looked at the ape again. A number of questions pressed for attention, such as, where does it keep its money? The librarian caught his gaze, misinterpreted it, and gently pushed the bowl of peanuts towards him. Carrot pulled himself to his full, impressive height and consulted his notebook. The afternoon spent reading the laws and ordinances had been well spent. Who is the owner, proprietor, lessee, or landlord of these premises? He said to Nobby. What's that? Said the small guard. Landlord? Well, I suppose Charlie here is in charge tonight. Why? He indicated a large, heavy-set man whose face was a net of scars. Its owner paused in the act of spreading the dirt more evenly around some glasses by means of a damp cloth, and gave Carrot a conspiratorial wink. My nose is getting stuffed up. Charlie, this is Carrot, said Nobby. He's stopping a log of rosy palms. What, every night? Said Charlie. Carrot cleared his throat. If you are in charge, he intoned, then it is my duty to inform you that you are under arrest. Arrest of what, friend? Said Charlie, still polishing. Under arrest, said Carrot, with a view to the presentation of charges, to wit, 1. That on or about 18th Grune, at a place called the Mended Drum, Filigree Street, you did A. Serve, or B. Did cause to serve alcoholic beverages after the hours of 12 midnight, contrary to the provisions of the Public Ale Houses Opening Act of 1678, and 1. On or about 18th Grune, at a place called the Mended Drum, Filigree Street, you did serve or did cause to serve alcoholic beverages in containers other than of a size and capacity laid down by aforesaid act, and 2. That on or about 18th Grune, at a place called the Mended Drum, Filigree Street, you did allow customers to carry unsheathed edged weapons of a length greater than 7 inches, contrary to section 3 of said act, and 2. That on or about 18th Grune, at a place called the Mended Drum, Filigree Street, you did serve alcoholic beverages in premises apparently unlicensed for the sale and or consumption of said beverages, contrary to section 3 of the aforesaid act. Jesus, that sucked so much to read. Fuck you, Carrot. There was dead silence as Carrot turned over another page and went on. Well, it is also my duty to inform you that it is my intention to lay evidence before the justices with a view to the consideration of charges under the Public Foregatherings Gambling Act of 1567, the Licensed Premises Hygiene Acts of 1433, 1456, 1463, 1465, and 1470 through 1690, and also he glanced sideways at the librarian, who knew trouble when he heard it coming and was hurriedly trying to finish his drink. The Domestic and Domesticated Animals Care and Protection Act 1673. The silence that followed held a rare quality of breathless anticipation as the assembled company waited to see what would happen next. Charlie carefully put down the glass, whose smears had been buffed up to a brilliant shine, and looked down at Nobby. Nobby was endeavoring to pretend that he was totally alone and had no connection whatsoever with anyone who might be standing next to him and coincidentally wearing an identical uniform. What did he mean, justices? He said to Nobby. There ain't no justices. Nobby gave a terrified shrug. New, is he? Said Charlie. Thank you for the tier 1 sub, Pancake. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Take it easy on yourself, said Carrot. This is nothing personal, you understand, said Charlie to Nobby. It's just a what's name. Had a wizard in here the other night talking about it. Sort of indie educational thing, you know? He appeared to think for a moment. Learning curve. That was it. It's a learning curve. Detritus, get your big stony arse over here a moment. Generally, about this time in the mended drum, someone throws a glass. And in fact, this now happened. Damn it. This now happened. And that's where we're going to stop, I believe, for the night. It was time to renew. Oh, thank you. And now it's stop on a cliffhanger. Always. Yeah. I know how it goes. So, that was a lot of fun. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I'm gonna make this a regular like Sunday stream thing. It's nice and chill. Kind of a good way to close out the week. And so yeah. Next stream. Thank you everybody. Glad you all enjoyed it. Yeah, tell your friends. And sorry, I needed to blow my nose. More robots reading Rainbow. Car knowledge. I think you actually have to actually ask me a question if you redeem that. So I'm not just going to start spouting something. You have to ask me something if you redeem that. But yeah, next stream is Thursday, although I might do one Tuesday. We'll see. I'm not sure. I kind of want to get into doing streams more often. Okay, I'll be prepared next time. It's all good. Thanks for the redeem. Let the tism flow. Well, my check engine light on my car is a P2096, which is post catalyst low or fuel trim is lean, and also today it popped a PO420. So thinking the cat is just dead, which sucks, but yeah, that's like $800 I don't have, so we'll figure that out. It might not be the cat, but I'm pretty sure it is because it stinks like a motherfucker. Yeah, smoke cats every day. Talk about rotary engines. Not tonight. It's too late. Last time I got on a tangent about rotaries with somebody, I like spent an hour and a half very high explaining everything and drawing them diagrams and shit. So yeah. Yeah, that's a cat. Yeah, I know. I know it's a catalytic converter. Unfortunately, the catalytic converter in my car is part of the turbo downpipe, so none of the options are cheap. But yeah, figure that one out. And in the meantime, I still have to get to work, so hooray. But anyway, this reading stream was super, super fun. And it's not one you can just take from a Walmart. Yeah, exactly. Like, I can't just throw like a universal. It's got to be a downpipe. So I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. But you underestimate robot. Good night, Boater. But yeah, next stream Thursday, unless it's Tuesday. Don't know yet. Definitely one Thursday, and definitely we'll be doing another reading stream where we will read more guards next Sunday. And yeah, thank you again, everybody, and thank you for the bits and subs and all the love. Good night, everybody. Thanks.